Welcome in, guys, to another episode of Hoops and Football. We try another fan cam and see how we go this week. So I thought we'll jump on and have a chat about the Richmond versus Collingwood. Obviously, wasn't a win. Obviously, a few late changes as well probably hurt us with Timmy Taranto going out. I think they said it was a reported sore hamstring. Not a good sign. No, not a great starting off. Obviously, considering he has been probably our best player for the season. Tends to kick a couple of goals a game or on and off. So for all we know, definitely would have been a big help going to the forward. So, but I've prepared a few slides for tonight's episode, actually for tonight's fan cam. I'm actually slightly ready for it. So I've got the score. So obviously, as you guys all probably will be able to see, it's 8 goals, 9.57 to 9 goals, 15.93. I think it started off really good. I've got a few screens loaded up, ready to go as well. So we didn't start off too bad. 2 goals, 1 to 3 goals, 3. It felt like we were actually in the game with them. Maybe not too many mistakes, but it seemed the difference between a very young side to a very senior side, because Collingwood is, I'm pretty sure, is the oldest side that goes out every single week, so they've got that a lot more experience than we do. But doesn't matter. I think, in my opinion, at the end of the day, I think we actually end up doing better than I thought we would. I really thought they were going to blow us out. But it really just come down to that third quarter. So then if you look at the second quarter, it was 4 goals, 4.28 to 7.6.48. So yeah, it's 20 points down. Then I think it was the first in going after halftime, the first 2 goals. We got it down to, I think it was 8 points. And then obviously that was probably all we got. It was 7-5-47 to 12-18. So they ended up going on and kicking 5 goals. What's that? 5 goals, 4. And to me, I think that really just stung us. And we just couldn't quite catch up after that. But considering, if you think about it from the start of the season, how we played, we normally have 2 really bad quarters, and the teams that are really good just blow us out. And it doesn't end too well for us at all. But considering that we only end up losing by 36 points against technically the number 1 team in the comp, makes me quite excited and appreciates the fact that we're actually growing through the season slightly. Like, normally, if this is the start of the year, I think we could say, first 5 rounds, the second and third quarter would have been the same as the third. So it would have been 10 goals kicked on us in about 2 quarters. And then it turns out to a 80-point blowout. And we all, obviously, players drop their head and get a bit down it. So still didn't out too bad. Just so you guys know, the link, if you would like to jump in and have a chat to me, should be up in the comments below. Anyone who feels welcome to jump in and have a chat with me about the game, feel free. Or put some comments below and we can have a chat with the comments, and I'll, put your comment up and we can talk about it. So I've got another slide, so we'll just remove that one. I'll jump into, that went to a very big screen. There we go. That's a bit better. That's what I had it set on. So, yeah, I do. Let's just pop that one up, Paul. I think I do agree with Paul here. Looks like the system is starting to develop. And look, if you guys have actually watched Adam Muse's press conference afterwards, actually discussing, they asked the questions about the system. They ask about why we didn't tag Nick Dacos, because obviously I think Nick Dacos had 43 disposals and 3 goals. He actually turns around and he actually explains that they're trying not to overload the players with too much of a different system. They're just focusing on their game style and playing their game style. And look, unfortunately, Nick Dacos will get off. I've got a bunch of players with kick goals. We might lose, but we're trying to reinforce the system that we're playing and the style we're trying to play with that fast movement sort of speed and pressure. But it's true, if you think about it from the start of the year to where we are now, that there was less fades, which I thought would be the opposite. I really did. I thought, considering our system was the first one, I thought the start of the year would be, maybe where the system's the most fresh and ready to go. And then in the other half of the system, we would start to die out because we're such a young side, and that system would burn. Young players would get tired. Like, I think we've played, was it now 8 or 9 debutants, and we're playing, I think it's 13 or 14 players under like 25 games. So we're like, I think we're the second. I think we were named the second youngest side of the round this week. So it shows you that the system is working, and maybe what Umaze is trying to still upon these players is actually what the players will taking it in, and they're doing quite well. So it's a very good positive to take out of this week's game, considering it could have been a lot worse. So I'm happy with that. I think we all could probably agree. We should all be quite happy with Adam Uze's coaching. I know I've had some questions during the year. Maybe I questioned the forward line coaching, but I did see that on Twitter. Some people were saying, like, I couldn't watch the whole game. I had some guests over at my house, but the ball was good in the back line, and it got to the midfield, and then it was going to the forward line, and it was dying away. And look, that's the whole entire thing. The system is probably working really good for the back half and in the middle, because that's our most experienced parts of the ground. But when it goes forward, it's obviously we're going to die off because we're very young in the forward line. How you going, Kane Horn? How you going, mate? Enjoy the game? Like, you got a game tonight, or you just enjoy watching it? So I can see why the forward line system is falling apart. If you look at the forward line, who was our most experienced player this week? Noel Bolter, and then it would have been Ryan Mansell. So our forward line probably needs 2 to 3 more years to catch up to what our defense and our midfield levels are at. I feel like personally, once we can balance out our midfield and our defense and our forward all on the same level, like, you don't have to have them perfect, but they all can play that same level. Obviously, one's a bit stronger than the other, but you want them to be pretty even, and it works out. And otherwise, in my opinion, you end up like North Melbourne. Like, if you guys watch the Geelong game, their defense, if you rate our defense compared to their defense, it's a different world, because Miller, even Taylor, obviously Noel Bolter's not playing in the back line right now, but Sam Banks, Jane Short, Nick Foster, Nathan Broad, they hold themselves a lot more of a higher standard and a lot more accountability. So North Melbourne just didn't do that. They were just so free. And look, they took on Geelong. We took on Collingwood. Collingwood is obviously we'd all have to say he's probably high up in the standards. And look at how well we held up against their attacking coming in. So that was quite impressive. So WA boy, mate. Jeez. Well, it would have been a nice early game for you just to watch, considering it started for over here in New South Wales. That started at, it was like 2:10, something like that. So it would have been an early game for you to watch that. So, all right. So then I've got another slide ready to go. It will just be, I'll have to remove my banner because you will not be able to see all this. All right, there we go. Cool. All righty. So it's just the disposals. As you all can see, it also gives you time on ground. Got goal assists, meters gained, clearances, hit outs, tackles, marks, all of them from the website. Now, I thought I removed the Tim Taranto. I don't know why. That's must have been a glitch in the system on the app, but that's had Taranto to come up. So obviously Jacob Hopper had 33 disposals, 11 kicks, 22 handballs. So obviously a lot more handballs than normal. 3 tackles, 4 clearances, and it's good to see that Hopper has kept up his meters gained to above 300, and obviously only 81% time on ground. So that was good to see. That I'm actually really happy with Hopper's effort. I think we could all probably say that he's over the season. I think expectations on Hopper was probably a little bit lower than previous years because he's been so injured pretty much since he got to Richmond. And it seems to me we went the opposite way as if in the ladder, we went down the ladder, and he's just got better. So it's really good to see. See that. So what do you got here, Kane? I'll read this. We'll do this one. Yep. What do you think of Bolter forward? Well, I reckon I do agree. I think Ooze likes it just because he's got experience playing in the forward line. Um, and the only other thing I do, why I kind of do like Bolter forward, and I think you can't take Taylor or Miller out of the back line. I think they've done too much right to be removed, and that's just not fair upon them just because Bolter's come back. But Ooze did say that he did like Noel Bolter forward as experience. But if you guys remember, so last quarter, I think maybe in 30 seconds to go, but Noel Bolter marked it on the wing or got a free kick, and he kicked it, and it went into that 40 to 30 meter mark inside 50. So he kicked it about 65 meters. That's one thing I do like when Bolter is forward. Look, I don't trust him in front of goal. I really don't. He hasn't always been the greatest set shot, but the one thing I do love is that you can leave Jonty Fall and Tom Sims, in that forward line. They seem to have a really good running pattern and marking. But the good thing about Noah is that he can go up the ground to do what Jack used to do. And Jack used to run up the ground, mark the ball, turn around, and he would try and deliver it into the forward as if how he would want it. But the good thing about Bolter is Bolter has that big thumping right leg on him. So the fact of every now and then when you're struggling to get it deep enough into the forward line, if Bolter can get his hands on it, he just gets it down there. He's a very strong and fast forward, so it makes it a little bit more complicated compared to a Sims in a forward, where they're just quite fast right now and agile, where Bolter's the opposite. Well, he's probably more than they are. He's the power forward, big kick, strength and speed. And look, I think they're trying to get him back in the game, getting some confidence, considering he's been in and out constantly. And obviously that's now over with the curfew. I think I'm pretty sure that ended on Wednesday. That just went. So now Noah can play every single game for the rest of the season without any interruption. Obviously, I think he stays forward, look, maybe for the rest of the year. And when Lynch comes back, maybe he goes on the bench, or maybe he goes back into the VFL. But I doubt it, because even if you look at in the VFL, Harry Armstrong kicked 2 goals on the weekend. Josh Kipkis is back. He's looking like I know he's only played, I think it's his 3rd game back. So he's showing some good form as well in the VFL and consistency as well. Hitting the packs a bit more as well. So it's really going to make it hard for players to get a spot back in the seniors as well. So, and then as we can see as well, we'll go back to the disposals. If anyone else has any players they want to ask the questions about, feel free to put them in or jump onto the link in the comments and jump on and have a chat with me. More than welcome to do that as well. Tyler Sonzi, so that's 28 disposals. So this would probably be his best game for the year, disposal-wise. Not sure whether we could say that was his best game. Like last week was pretty good. Maybe that's just because we got a win. But I was really happy to see that Sonzi is up there in the disposals as well. I'd love to know what his CBA is and, centre bounce attendings. Love to see what he got this week. But it's 28 disposals, and he had, look at that. Even that, we had 12 kicks, 16 handballs and 10 marks. So that shows me that his ability to get around the ground was good, even just in that stat, which is quite insane considering that's the most marks for the whole entire team. 3 tackles, 2 clearances, 83% time on ground, 296 meters gained. So the meters are up to the 300. I think most midfielders, to become elite, you need to be above the 300 plus mark of just meters gained. I just think that means you're more damaging with your disposals instead of just trying. Shows you to me that you're not going backwards all the time to get yourself out of trouble. Nick Flostone had another really good game. It seems to be he's aging like fine wine. I think every year he seems to get better and better as we go. Look, with 25 disposals, like 7 marks, and I think all 7 were like intercepted marking as well. His meter gained were high at 472, which is really impressive. Jay and Short looked pretty good as well. But we'd like to see him do a bit more what Sam Banks has been doing. Like Banksy this week looked pretty intense coming off that slingshot. So it was a multiple times. I think the goal for the Taj got off Nane Curvis was that Sam Banks ran around and handballed. And I think I saw that 3 or 4 times just into today's game, which is really good, I think, for me and from what my opinion is of Banks. Banks is really, to me, starting to take over that Jaden Short's role back in our prime, where Shorty used to be the one with that 1-2 with the handball off that 50-meter mark, and Banks is really, I think, taken that upon himself. So, for Banksy, I really, really loving that development. That's really showing the 2020 draft. I think that's where Banksy came out of. Same as Josh Gibkiss, Tom Brown, and Tyler Sonsie. So, a lot of criticism used to be from before this year's draft that we hadn't drafted really well recently. I think that's, we can probably start to say that's a lot of bullshit. I think it's just because we had, we're winning flags. We're in the finals every year. Players like Brown, Gibkiss, Sonsie, and all that stuff really didn't seem to get the ball much because they weren't getting into the seniors that well at all. So, Kane. So, trainer did apparently look a bit sore and his kicking is a bit sloppy. Oos actually said that he was meant to be the sub because I think he's got a sore leg, and they originally wanted to make him the sub just to rest him to get that back under control, but still allow him to have game time and allow him to be on the bench to learn whilst at the AFL level. But unfortunately, with how Timmy Taranto went out with the injury, they said that they had to obviously make a few adjustments. So they brought Jasper Alger in as a sub and they put Jonty straight on, which was quite insane when I first saw the last minute changes and I saw Taranto was out. When I looked on the app, it said Luke Trainer was playing in the midfield. I was like, well, that's a bit of a crazy one. I didn't see that coming. But look, I can see why they wanted to make him the sub, and I definitely think it's not a bad idea because he is, if you think of all the draftees that we got for the 2024 class, he's the only one who's played every game. And yes, he's been a sub or been subbed off a few times, but at the same time, he's played every single game. So it's just insane considering how well. And he's also, look, Luke Trainer's been a Swiss Army knife. Started off at the back, and then he went forward for a bit, and then now he's on the wing. So, look, maybe he does need just a one, like sort of what I think they should have done with Sims and Jonty already. Don't just drop him. Don't give him an AFL game. It's just get him a week off, get their bodies right, and then bring him back in as maybe he's a sub or something like that prior. But Ooze did mention that the original plan was to make him the sub so he could be rested and have his body right. That's why they subbed him off last week, and that's why he's going to be the sub this week as well. So, but I love their approach that they're trying not to drop the player. They're trying to just find a way to keep him in the game and get his experience up as well. So, what do we got here? Bully. Taj is looking good. Yeah, I was jumping off my feet when I saw that Taj had kicked a goal. And then I finally got a chance to see the highlight. And geez, I don't know about you guys, but he's got a good leap. He's definitely that Shane. I always said Shane Edwards-esque, but I'm really starting to get that Shea Bolton or Shy Bolton. I'm pretty sure it's Shea Bolton type of leap at him where he just gets up that short, skinny player and he just has those hops to get up there and mark that ball. Quite creative as well. What did Tajan have? Tajan having 2 goals, 11 disposals. What's that? 5? Oh, I just lost it. 5 kicks, 6 handballs. Only one mark, but that was a mark for a goal, which is good. 2 tackles, only 778 meters gained. Look, that's a bit down. And look, his time on ground is still only 67%. I thought by now it might be like a little bit higher. But look, it kind of sucks that it's not a bit higher. Maybe it's a bit bigger so you can see everything. Nah, that's horrible still. Got that one. Yeah. So that's shit for me, but I don't like that. I really wish it was in that 75%. Still below 60 is quite a low percentage. Look, I think even Luke Trainer maybe even had more time on the ground than he did. So, yeah, see, even maybe ball agrees with me. The mark was definitely Bolton-like for sure. Yeah, well, considering if you think of that mark, when he marked that ball, I'm pretty sure there was Noel Bolter and Jonty Fall plus two or three Collingwood players, and he just got in front of that pack, which is what Bolton used to do as well. He just seemed to find that little space to pop in between and mark that ball. and I really love that. And then his second goal, I think, was a handball from the ball Mumba McIntosh, and then he just snapped it and it just went in. So you can definitely see the hype and why Ooze rated him so high, Taj, and then also why Scott Pennebury, who plays for Collingwood, which apparently coached him over at Hanbury, the college there. So, Lawler, I think Lawler, trainer Smiley, and a lot of the other draftees said if he didn't do his ACL, he probably would have gone pick number 1 in the draft, which is insane to think that if you think of the 3 players we have who are meant to go, in that top 5, Luke Trainer's meant to be pick 2, Sam Lawler went pick 1, which is top 5 always, and then so was Taj Houghton. They obviously all the talk came that he could be a top 5 pick, which is insane to think that we now have all of them on our team. So then Bull made another good point with Steely going really well. And look, I had been calling this for a while. I dumped onto Big Tucker Footy Cast as well. Every time I had made a video or with him or even my own videos with the ins and outs, I thought Steely Green needed a breather, and not because his pressure wasn't good. To me, it was more because he wasn't getting enough scoring impact, and we definitely needed it. We weren't kicking any more than 10 goals a game. I know we didn't get this week or short. I really was hoping to get that mark of 10 goals again this week. But he needed to go back. He needed to go back into the VFL, kick 2 or 3 goals for a couple of weeks in a row, get his confidence up going again, because he seemed to be a bit down. Went back to the VFL. Prior to last week's bye, he played 2 games and he kicked 6 goals in between those 2 games and I think was averaging 10 disposals. So, which is what we want. I'm not asking him to kick, 3 goals or 2 goals every single game. A goal here, a goal or 2 every couple of games, whilst maintaining the pressure, which would be insane. So, which is what you want, and that's what you want from your small forwards. I know a lot of people are saying in any draft rating videos, they're all saying that, hey, I think Richmond needs to get another small forward, and I don't agree. I really don't think we do. I just think we haven't seen the perfect form of all our small forwards. So if you name off the small forwards that we have on our team, so you already got Jasper Alga, which I don't classify him as a small forward because he's such a plays taller than he is. But you got Morris Rioli Jr., Steely Green, Seth Campbell, Ryan Mansell. Not sure I don't think I'm missing anybody else that's a small forward that's on our list that's going to make it, I think, as a small forward. Okay, that's 3 or 4. And they all show some good signs, which is what you want. And in saying that, Morris Rioli Jr., look, didn't have his high disposals. I'm not sure where he played on the ground the whole game. I still think he needs to play centre half forward and then be allowed to run up the ground. So look, he had 8 disposals. Should have had a goal, but he handballed it off to Jonty Fall in that mark. I think it was in the 3rd quarter. And look, that was very unselfish of him, and he's definitely done that. But to me, I think the pennies dropped with Morris. He got Tom Mitchell for holding the ball. Then he got Steele Sidebomb not long after. And to me, if Morris Rioli Jr. gives you this game every single week, eventually the players are going to start to freak out when Morris Rioli is behind him, because he just seems to get the players, gets them down, and he hits them hard. He's not doesn't seem to hit the players soft. He seems to hit the players with his body and really, really hits them harder and make sure that they know that he's there. Which is what I love from Morris Rioli Jr. And that's what you want from your small forwards. But I'm not asking for Morris Rioli to be a Nick Watson, and kick 4 or 5 goals here and now. I'm asking for a goal or the effort to put in. Look, he officially had 1 goal assist. I think we all probably confidently say probably turned over and made sure that 3 goals were turned into. Sorry, man, I really don't agree with that one. I wouldn't say it was poor coaching today, mate. I really don't. The decision not to try and curb you. Look, and if you watch the press conference with Ooze, he originally was thinking about doing it, but he wanted to focus more on Richmond's game style. and I can understand. Look, and it would have been nice even just for 2 quarters to do it. But like he said, the hardest part is that if we were to go and tag Nick Dacos, then his brother would get off the chain, or Sidebottom would get off the chain. So they wanted to try and do a collective, just do as a group. And he did admit at the end, Ooze did admit at the end, probably that not tagging Nick probably did hurt him because he kicked those 3 goals. Feels maybe if we had tagged him, they wouldn't have kicked 3 goals. But I wouldn't say it was poor coaching. I wouldn't say it's a poor coaching day today. I think if you think about it, considering it's the top team in the comp, we lost by 36 points. At one stage, we got it back. They got up to, I think it was 24 points. We got it down to 8. Now, if this is the start of the year, this is last year, that third quarter where we got it back down to 8 and they kicked off, we would have sort of stopped. We would have given up and they would have gone on and kicked, in 2 quarters, would have kicked 13, 14 goals and would have turned into close to a 100-point loss. And we haven't even had that this year. I think the closest we got to is maybe 82-point loss this year. So, look, and we've all had this discussion before and probably said it multiple times, and we all probably think it. This game style we're playing isn't the final form of what Richmond's going to look like, and I would say 2 or 3 years. Considering Kane Corns, don't like to give him much credit, but he had this conversation at the start of the year. Look, why are these players getting hurt so much, and why can't their game styles match up with everybody? Because most of the players get, I think that he said it was something close to 20 weeks off a year. So you got 54 weeks out of a year, and they're spending close to half of their time on holidays. So, look, how can a coach implement so many different game plans if they can't even get their players? Like if they have their day off, their 1 day off a week they have, the AFL teams aren't allowed to call their players to do anything, no matter what it is. So, point is, he had 42 touches, 3 goals. Yeah. Look, and I understand, and look, that's what Ooze said. Like maybe at the end of the day, it would have been a good idea to do it, but they went into the game with a plan. And look, I trust their plan. And look, I think even if you did tag him, I really don't think Jack Ross was going to stop him. I think he's just a class above most players in the whole entire competition. But yeah, look, if you take away those 3 goals, the game's, we're within 3 goals. So look, it is what it is. It's obviously something that Ooze is going to have to learn. Now, everyone's got to remember Adam Ooze is only in his 2nd year of coaching as a head coach. So he's going to learn as well as while our players are learning at the same time. So I'm not going to hang him out for 1 game. Considering the last 2 weeks, we've won with a good game plan, and we definitely could have lost by a lot more if you think about that, considering how much or who we were playing. So I don't take it too bad, and just we'll get better as we go. So I'm trying to think of who else had a really good game that stand out. Look, Toby Nankervis was pretty good. Yeah, look. And then he did it against Essendon as well, against McGrath. It was McGrath or Merritt. Sorry, against Merritt. He did against Merritt as well. But yeah, I understand he did against Reed. But I think we can both be honest here that, Reed and Merritt aren't in the same class as both Dacoses, really. So, look, I would have loved it. Like, I agree. I think maybe even just to do what we have done the last few weeks. Cool, at halftime, Nick Dacos I think at halftime he had, was it 22 disposals or 23? It was on track for a 50-game disposal, which he got pretty close. And almost broke the record, I think, for Collingwood's most disposals by a player. He was up there with, what's his name for bloody Collingwood? I can't remember his name, but he had 50. But at halftime, at least, I agree, at least at halftime. At least try for 1 quarter. And if Jack Ross isn't, look, Jack Ross did have a bad game. Jack Ross had 14 disposals. But obviously, with 4 clearances, 306 metres gained, but you would have liked to at least tried for a quarter or 2, because it definitely could have changed. Like, it definitely could have swung the game maybe towards our way, or maybe just slightly slid the bleeding. But Look, it is what it is. We're going to live and we'll learn. The players are going to get better. The coaches are going to get better. Well, Ooze obviously will get better with those calls of making them when he wants to. So, but we can't. I'm not going to live and die by one game. Maybe next week, Ooze will take that into account of making sure you tag, that we do tag. So that would be a nice one for next week to do. So I just thought I'd jump over to see some anything major. Look, let's just get rid of this bloody thing. And that is a horribly too big for my head. That makes me look horrible. Just thought we'd do some other stats as well, because just to see where we kind of get damaged, where we showing any good signs, where we close with them at all times. Look, disposals, it's not horrible, not our worst for a loss, but what was this one? What'd you say? What really did it for me was a snap goal in the third. Yeah, it seemed like in that third, like I said at the start, that I think our third was our worst quarter. And that was probably just an example of how maybe we dropped off that third. Maybe got a little bit confident, we were within 20-something points and thought we were a bit better than we were doing. But yeah, and it seemed, I think in that time when he kicked that goal, it looked like there was 2 or 3 Conga players by themselves. I'm not sure whether that's the midfield not coming into the 50 to help defend, or was Dacos playing as a half back then, and then the forward player didn't come in with him to negate him. I would have liked to see Mansell tag him, actually. I just don't think Ross would have the legs to go with him, the whole entire game. So I wouldn't have been against even Mansell giving it a crack to see how he goes. So, look, and then we didn't win disposals. It was 423 to 365. So obviously they had the ball a lot better than us. Probably kicked it more efficient than us as well, which wouldn't surprise me. Look, yeah, disposal efficiency, they were at 74%. Which is probably pretty good. I don't think that's we were at our season average at 72%. So look, we're going to get better with disposals. I think we can always say we're going to make a few mistakes here and there. Luke Trainer had a few sloppy ones. Even as experienced players are going to have it just until our system starts to work itself out. Look, inside 50s weren't too bad. They went at 53%, so that's quite high. Because I don't think that's even their season average. That's above their season average anyway as a team. So what are you going to do when they just... That third quarter felt like they just couldn't miss. I don't know about you guys, but I watched them the third quarter. It just looked like, no, they can't make a mistake. They're just going to clunk it every single time and not miss. And that third seemed to hurt us a bit more. So, look, we won the free kick count. Give us a clap. Collingwood, for once against us, didn't win a free kick count. 13-19. There was some atrocious free kicks that I did see that probably should have been called for a holding the ball or dropping the ball. Collingwood got it and kicked a goal. And we're going to have them all the time for us. And even every game, the umpiring isn't the greatest. But for once, we actually won it. Collingwood would probably tell you that it was 25-2 there our way, as all fans do. Look, so quite surprisingly, if you look at the clearance or the hit out section, it was quite actually even for once. Normally we get blown out really bad in clearances, centre clearances, and stoppage clearances. We're really not the best team in the AFL for this stat. But look, clearances was 30-27 their way. That's not too bad at all. I've been critical of Sonzi to the point saying he should be delisted. Yeah, I'll put my hand up, and I've actually made a video saying I thought he would be delisted or traded to another club. But the last couple of games, he's been really good. I hope he can keep this form. Yeah, look, I don't know whether that's if he's getting more midfield time or the pennies dropped, as same as what Maestro Jr. did. I feel like I'm not sure. It wasn't the Essendon game, the West Coast game. I think the penny dropped because he got dropped in the, what do you call it? He got subbed off at the Essendon game, and you could see it really pissed his Sonzi off. He was angry on the bench. My personal thought would have been they would have sort of what they were saying, like what Ooze was saying about trainer today, They put him on the bench. They spoke to him, and in game they could show him right when it's fresh. Because this is what Uze was saying about Tyler Sonzi. Sorry, about Luke Trainer. When they subbed him off, that he had a couple of bad passes, a couple of bad kicks. But I guess it's a lot better to do it now when sorry. When that game was fresh in his head, they could actually show him, look, 5 minutes ago, this is the kick you did. We can't have that. This is what we do to get better. And I'm hoping that's what they did with Sonzi, because then that West Coast game, if you guys remember the West Coast game, which most of us will because it was a great game to watch, we question his courage for a ball when he's going to hit like that pack. Sometimes you got to put your head down and just hit the pack, and if it hurts, it hurts. And there was 3 instances in the West Coast game where he went for the pack and look, he didn't mark it, but he hit the pack hard, the ball spilled, and off we were. But he showed something there, and I'm hoping that's the penny dropped. And now the club's like, okay, well, the penny's dropped for him. He's shown the great courage and the willing to get the ball. Now it's given some more midfield time, because that's what he was drafted for. Like, as much as people don't like have hated on Sonzi, and I haven't hated on him, just got to understand AFL, 3 years is the minimum years you get as an AFL player. If you don't make it, boom, you don't make it. That's just how it is. It's a high turnover sport. But when he was drafted, he was known to be an elite kick on his left and his right, and a great clearance worker as a midfielder. So obviously maybe we're starting to see it. And with Taranto out, they had to play him forward in the midfield more instead of forward. And him and Jack Ross swapped around. And there's, your CBAs aren't being dominated just by Prestia, Hopper, and Taranto. So what do we got here, Kane? Also, they lost 2 in a row, and they weren't. Yeah, look, and that's probably fair. And they're back at the MCG. They don't like to lose. They're like what we were like in our Premier's time. Don't like to lose at the MCG. They're probably just angry. And look, in my opinion, if I was Collingwood, I wouldn't be happy, because everyone said this was going to be a bloodbath. Then they're like, oh, this should be pretty much what Geelong and Adelaide did to Port Adelaide and North Melbourne. This should just be a bloodbath. They should have won by 20 goals. Look, really, if we think about it, they didn't even score over 100 points. They really should have kicked 120 and kept us below 60 and won by 60 plus 70 plus points. They should have used this game as a practice game. But I just think it was us. I think they tried their best. And I just think our game plan or our players just didn't allow them to break away and have a superstar game. So, and which is good to see, I think, as us as a club, and not allowing a club just to blow us out. Because we were at the start of the year, you guys remember that, like, we'd have a bad first quarter and it was too late. They'd kick 6-7 goals and it's over. Or we'd have a bad third quarter and they kick 6-7 goals and we kick nothing and we go 2 quarters without scoring and it just kills us. So, yeah, Sonzi has definitely been good. Yeah, 28 touches. I'd love to know, I don't know if anyone's on here who can maybe look up the CVAs for today's game. I definitely reckon he would have to be a bit higher up than when regularly is for Sonzi, because it's definitely needed to be changed, because we can't just keep running the same midfield all the time. It doesn't always work. And then look, Preston could be gone next year, and I understand that everyone's kind of hoping he stays. Look, he might not want to stay. He might want to go into coaching, because we all know Preston has talked about going into coaching. So to me, you got to bleed some of these other young guys into that midfield time, because eventually, once Prestia is gone, like I've said this in a couple of videos, everyone's got to start understanding why we're playing so many young players now. Because in the next, say, 2 years, you're going to have no Tom Lynch. You're going to have Nathan Broad will be gone, probably Toby Nankervis, Dion Prestia, maybe Nick Velostone, Ken McIntosh. Just between those players, you're going to lose close to a couple of thousand games of experience. So, like, now, like, this is why, like Ken said here, look, training is improving his game. And look, he is. He's the most consistent player we actually have, considering how young he is as well. So, you've got to get these players again. And I probably feel bad for Trainer more than anything, if you think about it. He was drafted as an intercepting defender, and he's really good at it. Like, his hands are really good with marking. Even I think it was against West Coast or Essendon, he took a one-handed mark. Like, he's got a really good pair of hands, and that's why he was so highly talented. But he started as a defender, and then he went forward. Now he's a wing, and apparently today he might have played slightly bit of midfield time. So you got to feel bad for him. Ken, our back six is actually quite good. I think they were saying on the champion data, I don't know if it was yesterday, that when Richmond's defence intercepts from the back line and goes forward to score, we were the number one in the comp for, I think it was like the last month. I think that's what it was, something along those lines, that we were the number one team in the comp from transitioning from defense to forward. So, yeah, it's probably it is our strongest part. But look, yeah, our backs are great. Look, our midfield isn't horrible. Like, Nate is still a really good ruckman. Hopper, Taranto, Presti is there. Jack Ross is playing quite well now. Like, obviously now Sonzi. We're seeing Sam Lawler and Kane McCall from the midfield, so you're seeing a bit of the future. Like I said, I just think out of the three groups, your backline's great, your midfield's good, your forwards aren't great. But that's what's killing us right now. You imagine if our forward line is the same as what our defense was, how much more different we are. But that means we just got to give the guys in the forward line some time. Jonty and Sims, give them 2 or 3 years. And Harry Armstrong, 2 goals in the VFL. It changes everything. So it's maybe that's something we need to look for in the off season. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but maybe bringing in some more senior forwards to help out. I have made a video on that. A lot of people didn't like the person I suggested. So, Paul, what do you got here? Yeah, I want to keep Macca. Like, I really do. I think maybe it depends on Dion Prestia. Look, and I think if you in that point, if you kept K-Mac, I think you'd have to say you can't guarantee that he's going to play AFL every week. I think that would definitely have to be something you'd say to him. Like, and he might turn around and say, I don't want to play unless I'm playing. I know I'm going to be playing seniors. We all know he's got his own stuff outside football. But look, and then that's the thing. That's what I was saying just before. Look, you're going to have depth. The depth is going to drop off really quick soon. Obviously, you want to try and stretch it out as long as you possibly can. So maybe do you keep? I think you could keep him. I think it's not a bad idea. And then maybe if you do keep him, he just plays VFL. It helps out the young players during training. Apparently, he's great around the club. He's a very big club man. Everyone loves him. Keep him around. And if someone gets injured, he comes in. If not, he plays VFL. And then that's the end of his year. Maybe at the end of the year, you give him one more game for his senior, and you send him up for the sunset at the end of 2026. With him and Nathan Broad, will probably both be gone by 2026. As much as Nathan Broad says he's gone, I would love Nathan Broad to stay. Just don't see it happening. He's already said to everyone he wants to go. So, but yeah, look, and the same question with Tom Lynch. Do we give Tom Lynch another year? And that's definitely when we have to have a discussion. Yes, they've got to get the ball. Yeah. Look, the clearance issue is one. I think that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Now, I'm not sure if it's the clearance. To me, it's more the issue is now you look at Gold Coast. Port Adelaide were really good, and Geelong were really good on the weekend. It's that think of Gold Coast on the weekend. Matt Real gets it, boom, handballs to Anderson, and Anderson just puts the afterburners on and runs away. And that seems to be our issue, is that we get the ball, we handball to somebody, say Hopper or Prestia or Jack Ross, and the guys are too slow. And their midfield's faster than ours, and bang, they get you. So you don't get much with it, and you're not doing much with it, because as soon as you get the ball, a player gets away with it, bang, they get tackled. And we don't have that Shane Edwards anymore, or a Dustin Martin. Like, I know Dusty wasn't the fastest player, but his first 3 or 4 steps were just power, and he was up and he was gone. So I definitely think coming into next year, you can't change it now. Like, it's too late in the season to try and change that midfield to inject a bit of speed. But to me, the off season is definitely going to have to be prioritizing, to me, in that midfield, speed. And with speed, look, yeah, and with that, with the slow to hand by foot, that's some of the young players just adjusting to AFL and getting better. But that's also speed as well. We're not fast enough to move. And that's why I'm for what Ken's saying. That's what he's saying. We're just not fast enough as a speed wise. That's why I'm pretty keen on Zach Butters. I would throw the kitchen sink at him. And look, it kind of had to ask Zach Butters, do you want to come across? Like, hey, we're Richmond, 100, almost, I think we're 95,000 members. We're a big club. You'll play MCG, 12, 13 times a year. We might go to Tassie and play a couple of games. But, round one against Carlton, whether anyone likes it or not, whether how shit Carlton is or Richmond is, we always draw 80,000. That round one, Thursday night, sucks it's not Friday night anymore. Makes it a lot harder for some families to get to. I think you could bump numbers up if it was a Friday night and didn't have a Thursday night. And actually make that Richmond versus Carlton in the opening game for the season. It seems to be the best thing. Zach Butters would be the player. I'll be knocking on the door. So I'm not referring to Hopper and Taranto in terms of speed. No, I was. That was my opinion, mate. I wasn't saying you were. I was saying, like, when it comes to Hopper, Taranto, and Ross, by foot, they're not the fastest, and that's what kills them. And they're great in the midfield. They're really good for clearance. They're good for getting the ball and handling the ball out. But then there's no one on the outside to get that ball and dash. Like, in our prime, we had Lambert, who'd be out. Trent was really good. Shane Edwards was really fast. Shea Bolton was in there. Look at what he's doing at Fremantle. He just hangs on the outs and gets the balls and burns them. And we're just not doing that. So, so it's a while. I think and look, maybe we've got the players sitting like on our bench, not on our bench. Sorry, in our team, they're just not experienced enough, or they're not getting it. Look, if we think about this in the next, say, 3 years, what's our midfield going to look like? It's probably going to be Smiley, Lawler, Kane, McAuliffe, hopefully, because I think that's a really good midfield three. And then you bring in between Seth Campbell, Morris Rioli, and maybe Tash Houghton. So you can inject your speed there with that. And then look, Sam Lawler is really good at the inside, but he's also good at the outside. And Kane McAuliffe, by the same, they've both got really good. The first steps are really powerful. And then you got your Sam Lawler and your Taj, who Taj can play fast and inside. But Smiley would be the one that's the big boy that gets his head down and rips through players and throws players off with his shoulder and handballs the ball to your players like a Taj Houghton, a Morris Rioli, or Seth Campbell. And obviously before Seth Campbell went down with a concussion, we saw him going in the midfield. And if you guys remember that when he was in that midfield, he got, I think it was Harley Reid for hold the ball because he was quick. Wasn't allowing Harley Reid to get the ball. And Harley Reid has a good burst of speed, but it's a burst. It's not a long sprint like what a Seth Campbell is, but burst of speed. And Seth Campbell has that burst of speed and stopped him. And that was what was really killing us at the start of the year because we played the same Hopper, Taranto, and Ross over and over, and we were too slow. And it kills us. So how many players do you think we are away for finals contention? Really depends on who comes along that we draft as well. I don't think we're really maybe one defender because in the next time we go to, in my opinion, the time we contend for finals, you're not going to have Nathan Broad and you're probably not going to have Nick Flostone. And Jaden Short will probably be on the way out as well. So you're going to have a couple of replacements in defense. And we might already have that with Josh Kipkus, Luke Trainer. Those boys might already be there waiting. Presty will be gone. So you don't really need another. I think maybe one midfield, which to me would be like someone like Zach Butters. And the forwards, you might have to outsource for if we are to contend. Outsource maybe one experienced forward. Because I'm talking, this is 2 to 3 years away before we're pushing for top 8. Which is obviously contending for finals. Yeah, I think a couple of defenders, not many. It was just maybe like what Hawthorn did, 1 or 2, and then really just develop a couple of your midfielders to help out. And my goal would be hope to get someone in the forward line to really help out, because Lynch is done at the end of this year or next year. And I know the report was Lynch will get another 1-year deal. At the end of 2026, he will be gone. I don't think we're going to keep him. So unless you see Jonty and Harry Armstrong really come on and Tom Sims, I think you're going to have one experienced player, because even when Lynch goes, those guys aren't going to be at 60 games. They're going to be just pushing for 50. So, and they say, I think between 50 and 100 is where you really need to push to get your players as soon as you possibly can. So, yeah, I would say that's probably, 5 players. Now, they don't have to be, when I say 5 players, they don't have to be what Hawthorn went and did. They go and get the creme de la creme, like the best of the best. We didn't do that in our original time. You think about Richmond in 2016, 2015, even in 2012, when we went and got Basher Hooley and Sean Griggs, and players who played pivotal parts in our premiership. When we went and got Toby Nankervis, was that Josh Caddy and bloody Dion Prestia. So, and look, if I could say a type of player we are missing to help us contend for finals, I would say it's a Josh Caddy type player. So the issue we have now is that we're really tall or we're really small. We don't have that in between. Like, you guys remember what Josh Caddy was like. He was 6'3", and he was a big, solid, powerful midfield / forward. And he worked really well along with Tom Lynch and Jack Rebo, because he wasn't ginormous, but he wasn't really small, and he just seemed to work his way around, and it worked really well. And a lot of clubs have that, and I think it's very hard to find. I think Richmond was very lucky to get him, and for what we paid for him. We paid a late second round pick. I think we were quite very well lucky for what we got. But that could be, to me, a key piece of a player that we do need to get, is a hybrid forward. And Jasper Alger, to me, like, sort of similar to like Jack Gunston from Hawthorn, like what he does. He's not giant, but he's not short, and he just seems to play in that middle, which makes it hard for players to match up, because I got to focus on their smalls or their talls, but then you got this middle player that just seems to play really good above air and really good on the ground, and it's that in between side. So, yeah, it can be a bottom cripple. And the hard thing is that his body type and his style of play is so similar to him. That's who he was rated as a draftee, and Cripper is his mentor. So it's definitely something that we would have to work on. But if you guys, now this is what I think gets me a little bit with people with Smiley. It sucks he's not playing, because he's just a unicorn. Like, really, if you think about it, he's a unicorn. He's 195 centimeter. I think he was, when he came in, he was like 95 something plus kilos at 18. Like, that's a big boy at 18. And his body just hasn't handled it. And I know it keeps, and they even asked it today in the post conference of the game, where's Smiley at? And they're still saying, Ooze is still saying 2 weeks away, because the bye last week probably pissed up his return, which really makes it hard. But they're trying to get training blocks into him. And look, I am of the opinion of, when Bont and Cripps came in, I can tell you this right now, their first year, they did not play that much. And they weren't this superstar when they came in, because you know what? Their body wasn't ready for AFL level. It took them, I think, Bont was his second year. He started to really come on, and Cripps was his second or his third year when they really started to show who they were. So for all we know, Smiley could have this 1 year of getting his body right, adjusting to what the AFL life is like, come back next year, and ends up being a star, and you know, could change our midfield. And look, yeah, I do agree, Widescreen TV, I do agree that it's not a big deal if he doesn't play this year. Like I said, I'm all for if he doesn't get an AFL game this year, and I know it would suck for him. They want to reward him. They want to give him a taste. Ooze has said this, I think, in a couple of press conferences now. He's like, we just want to get him into the game, into an AFL game, so when he goes back into the VFL or the off season, he knows what the level jump is, like what the height of difference between VFL and AFL is, or under 18s and AFL. This is what you got to do. This is how intense and how hard you got to go. But I'm more for get your body right. And there was the same thing with Sam, for Sam Law, when he did that hamstring. I was more of the whole, don't bring him back into the AFL or the VFL. I was more, maybe even look to shut him down for the whole year and make sure that hamstring comes back 100%. Otherwise, it's just going to kill us. So, what did you say again? Sorry, Ken? Yeah, I will agree. Fall is probably coming on a lot better than I thought, and maybe most people think as well. So, you think he kicked 1 goal 2 today, and you think that could have been 3 goals. I definitely think there is a game either this year or next year, which is insane to think for a forward in his first and second year. And they've even said this. Jonty's in his first year. It's crazy how many games he's played and how well he's playing. He's now kicked, it would be something like 13, 19 or 19. He mainly kicked 20 behinds. So if he had kicked accurately, we could have had a first-year forward kicking nearly 30 goals, which is insane to say. But his effort never dies. I'll tell you that right now. His effort never dies off. And I definitely agree there. Against Maynard today, member of the wing, yeah, he didn't like Bloody going up against Bloody. Wouldn't have liked it because Jonty doesn't back down. And he's not dirty about it. He just hits you hard. But his hands are getting better. I will say that. I think that was one being in with Jonty Falls under 18s profile was his hands need to be cleaned up on. Definitely getting the vibes of he's cleaning up his hands and he's getting really high to the point. And look, he's playing in a November, just so everyone, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, remember, Jonty Fall was playing and Sims playing in a very inexperienced forward line. And just remember, look what they're doing for a very inexperienced forward line, which is quite impressive in my opinion. So you're a Kane, you're an Alga fan, are you? Yeah, I think Alga's going to be that hybrid forward. I definitely do. If you look at his VFL, when he's played the VFL and had a full games, he's fast, but then he's really plays tall than he is. I've watched a few of his VFL games, just seems to be bigger than what most players are, and he just seems to get his hands up really well. So, I think we need to keep our quotation on Alga check. Doesn't go. Yeah, look, only thing I don't like they've done with Alga. Are you meaning by players that don't go at 55? Are you meaning like 55% game time? Because the biggest issue with Alga is he's been the sub. I think he's only played 2 games. Or is this his 3rd game? I think 2 of his games he's started as a sub. So his game time on ground is going to be very low. But I'm not having high expectations, but if you look at what he's giving you in the VFL, in the times he had played the VFL, I think he had kicked nearly over 20 goals in the VFL for a first year. Very young. Remember, he is the youngest. So this is another one I think people forget. Jasper is the youngest player in the AFL right now. That's how young he is. He only turned 18 at the preseason camp. That's how young he is. So he's very, very low in age as well. So, when we went to West Coast, he's at Carlton from last couple of years would have been a great outcome for Alga. Yeah, that would be a good little target to get to. This year hasn't been that great, but nor is West Coast, so that's being a bit harsh on that one. Yeah, look, that's the question when it comes to the kicking into the forward line, as Bull Bully says, the midfield's going in, but the forward's so young that I don't think they understand the game style of cutting, leading, turning, getting back, creating space. I think that's a big thing that maybe we miss from Cozzy. I know people are going to probably hate him because Cozzy's not a superstar, but he's an experienced forward. If you watch the West Coast game, multiple times where he would lead up and realize he wasn't going to get it, but he would keep leading and lead his play completely out of 50 to create more space. Or Seth Campbell was coming running into that on that run on the 50. He turned back around and ran back towards the goals, drag his player so his player didn't keep running forward and create a congested line so Seth Campbell can't kick a goal. I think it's just a few things we missed. Sorry, Ken. So you mean a draft pick? Yeah, pick 58. Look, I get he was at pick 58, but a lot of people were shocked he dropped down to pick 58. People were predicting him to be a second-round pick and actually be at pick, I think it was Richmond's original last pick, which we took with Sims. That's when they thought Richmond was going to take him. He was actually tailed, I think it is, to go higher than pick 58. But look, there are a lot of players that you can say at pick 58 that end up being really good players that you'd be quite surprised at, and how well they turned out. Look, Richmond have drafted a lot of players pre-season and mid-season draft that have ended up being really good players. Nathan Broad, Steely Green was one. He was a rookie. Sam, what do you call it? He plays for West Coast. We just traded him. Jeez, I can't remember his bloody name now. No, I can't remember his bloody name. Went to West Coast. We traded him to West Coast. Yeah, but Jack Graham was only a pick 52. So, I don't always agree on the draft picks. I think sometimes it's just a player. They slide because of what a player wants. A lot of players seem to last year's draft one big, tall forwards. So, Baker, thank you. Thank you, which is really annoying because I used to love Baker playing. Baker was another rookie draft pick. Jason Castagna was a rookie draft pick. So it's just showing you that some of these players can be anything not from where they get drafted from. So I'd agree about these players we drafted. Normally in situation football, non-rebare wouldn't have played nearly as much as they have. Look, and that's probably what's been really lucky for the players we drafted and the draft class. I think if we all probably consider and agree, we were quite lucky where we had, three really superstar type players wanted to leave in Bolter, Baker, and Rioli. They wanted to go. The clubs were willing to give up the assets. And it just seemed fucking mad. I'm not like swearing, but magically line up with a super draft. And then obviously the Massive came in with the whole entire doubt of Brisbane needed to match the points to get Ashcroft. So that means there was another chance of getting another first-round pick. So it just, to me, that this draft just magically aligned for Richmond, which never happens to Richmond, as we all can agree. We've never been that quite lucky of a club. But I think we may have just timed it right. And it's hard to say that I've ever seen a club draft this many players, and it feels like to me that most of the players they've drafted are going to work. We can all probably say that we can see that Totten's going to make it, Law's going to make it. Luke Traynor looks like a 150-game player already. He looks like he's going to make it. Jonty Fall really starting to give off the vibes that he's going to make it. We don't know about Smiley. Harry Armstrong seems like he's going to make it as well. He's done quite well himself. So most of the players we drafted, and Alga has showed some signs, but look, he hasn't had the greatest run at it, which is quite unfair. I really would like to give him that 4-week block. He would have got it if he didn't hurt his ankle. I think that was against Adelaide. Yeah, I think he hurt his ankle against Adelaide and he was out, so he hasn't had a chance to get that run, and the bye came into the VFL, which really messed his return up. So that kind of sucks for that one. I have no doubt Alga will be a good player, but on social media saying he'll be a super... yeah, I agree on that. That's a bit harsh. I don't like the putting, people have done it with Sam Lawler already, and because there's a pick one, which is quite common, that Sam Lawler, people were saying that if you're going to build a club from one player, that club, Sam Lawler's that one player, he's going to be that superstar. I think there's not many superstar players that are Alga's type of player that he is, where he's not a midfield. He's not a midfield / forward. Alga to me is really just that hybrid forward player. The way he plays, that's why. And that's it's my opinion. He's got speed. He needs to work on his defense before he can even be classified as. Look, if he could become an elite role player, I'd be happy. That's my expectation for Jasper. Is just to be a role player. If he becomes an elite role player, it's great. I would like to see Jasperaga turned into the type of role player that Castagna was or Butler was, in 2017. That's my expectations from them. It's not much. I'm not asking to be superstars. So, you look at the back line as well coming in. Tom Brand will be there for a while. Who else is there? I'm trying to think. Luke Traynor. Sam Banks would definitely be a constant replacement. Nick Flostone, so Miller and Taylor will stay there forever. I see that. I don't see them going out anytime soon. Those two have been very hard to change. So what specifically do you think we need to go from this draft? I would like in this draft, it all just depends really on who's left. Look, not everyone, I don't know if everyone knows. I'll just give you the information that I know. Richmond only have pick 2 and 3. Technically, right now, West Coast could come in. If Allen leaves, they get pick 2. Bullshit. I don't think Allen warrants a pick 2. There's only players that get traded that should be given a pick 2 for that. Like Tom Lynch was, but Tom Lynch was a whole different kettle of fish when he left Gold Coast. But if they have pick 1, there's talks that West Coast don't want pick 1 and they want to trade it away. I would be happy to go for Josh Lindsay. He's a dashing left footer off the half back. I think he would be a player you can kind of do what Geelong does. You put him in the VFL and along the side and you allow him to grow in the system, which is what you want. The VFL needs to run the same system as the AFL. So the step up from VFL to AFL is just the intensity, not the game style. Put him in the VFL, allow him to develop as a running back player. Needs to clamp on his kicking a little bit, but very good very good elite runner, good left foot. I'm pretty sure he's also reported he's ambidextrous, so he can kick left and right, but he's predominantly left. Look, Dersma is another player. Will Dersma. I know a lot of people don't like the Dersmas because of their brothers. I think it's quite harsh to put on one player because other brothers went so high and haven't lived up to the hype. Which he is probably similar to a Luke Traynor, where you can kind of throw him anywhere. He's a good runner. I wouldn't say no to him. And TDK, Cooper Duff Tyler would be the other one I would go for, only because Nank isn't going to be around forever. I think we can agree Samson Ryan isn't the replacement. Not long term. Oliver Hayes-Brown, look, he could be. I just don't think he's going to be that player like you're going to want to have for the next 10 years. So Cooper Duff Tyler, I would love to have. He is a Luke Jackson-esque sort of player that I would go after. Yeah, well, look, and that's right, DC type. If you think that a future Nank replacement, that's why I would go after Cooper Duff Tyler, because he is he's a ruckman first, but then he's a midfield, which is the crazy part. In the I think it was under 18s, I think the first Coates League game they had, he legit was put in as a midfielder, and there was another ruckman. So he can do both. He is a Luke Jackson the next Luke Jackson player. So that would be what I would be going after. If he slipped past West Coast. I don't think he will get past West Coast. And there's reports, in my opinion, I think the reports I've heard that Essendon, if West Coast don't want pick 1 and they want to try and get a couple other picks, that Essendon might trade up their first round pick and the D's first round pick. So that would give Essendon pick 1. If Allen goes, West Coast will have pick 2, so they can still go and get somebody else. Then they'll have something along the lines of like pick 6 and 7 in the draft. So they would have 2, 6, and 7. Would allow them to get 3 players in the top 10. All depends on who you rate, because obviously Gold Coast has 2 players rated in their academy to go in the top 5. All depends on if the clubs want to make Gold Coast pay. And pay up a fair bit of money. But there's also talks that Gold Coast want to try and get themselves up high in the draft and have two picks in the top 5 just so they can take them where they have to worry about matching points. The draft is a bit of a hard one. just because there's no one really shining too much. And look, Dyson Sharp is he's a good player. Look, if I was going to go Sharp, I would definitely wouldn't be against it, only because Cooper Duff, Tytler, the father and son that we have coming up actually they play side by side, and apparently the reports are they're very good 1-2 punch off that halfback. So if you get Sharp, you can't get Josh Lindsay, because that's just how kind of have similar style. Sharp plays midfield, but then I also have the warrior of South Australia go home factor, which seems to be Callaway. Here we go. Geez, you guys are on fire tonight with these names for me, because I am not doing it really well. Duncan Callaway, well, I think it's Lewis Callaway, but Duncan Callaway's son. Him and Sharp both play for South Australia, and apparently it's a very good 1-2 punch. So at least if you brought Callaway in, there you go, right there. Yeah, Callaway was a grouse in the Champions with Sharp. So if you wanted to do that, that's not a bad. Callaway should only be a second round to third round pick. We have to find a way to get that in, considering we only have our first round picks. We traded our second round pick goes to North Melbourne, obviously for their first round pick. I believe our third round pick is to Port Adelaide or Collingwood in a previous trade, and our fourth round pick goes to Gold Coast in the Jasper Alga trade that we did in last year's draft to get ourselves back in the draft, because we traded ourselves out and we used our last pick. So, yeah, it would be nice if West Coast don't get the Allen comp. Yeah, because, yeah. Look, I'm not against that, but the chances, it depends on what pick you're wanting to trade with Essendon. I originally did a video on suggesting that if Richmond's trying to get as much talent in possible, will you guys be willing to trade a pick 2 or 3? If it was preferably me, and you knew West Coast weren't going to get that compensation pick for Allen, they had to choose between Cooper Duff, Tytler, and Will Dersma. I think there's talk that they're willing to go after Will Dersma to give Harley Reid some backup in that midfield. If they weren't going to take Cooper Duff, Tytler at pick 1, and we had pick 2, I would be willing to trade pick 3. I would take Cooper Duff, Tytler, and then take him, and then trade your pick 3 for their late picks. But I think if Cooper Duff, Tytler was to slip to us at pick 2 or 3, I would have a feeling that Essendon would offer you the 2 first-round picks this year and their future first-round pick, because they're going to have Cooper Duff, Tytler go to their VFL program and play there, and they tried to put him under their NGA Academy program as well to try and nab him away from everyone else. So that would be a definite yeah. Good question for everyone who's watching. If you got pick 2 and it came down and Cooper Duff, Tytler was there, would you give up Cooper Duff, Tytler, who could be that next Luke Jackson for, I think it would be pick 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, and then a future first round. So would you give up pick 2 for 3 first round picks? It would be hard to say no to, because then you can go off and you could get Sam Grillage, Fred Rodriguez, Dyson Sharp would still be there, and you could really make Gold Coast suffer by going after every player that they've got academy for, because they've got 3 this year, I think it is. You could really hit him pretty hard there as well. Bolter had under 8 games. Yeah, look, he was playing out of his usual position, so it's hard to give him a rating for his game. But I would say it probably adds a bit of extra help to our young forwards, because he's won a premiership. He's been to the top. He understands what you got to do. I'm all for him staying as a forward. I said that at the start of the video when I brought him up. If you had to leave him forward, Tom Lynch, I think he's still out for 2 more weeks, so we're not going to see him. I think it's maybe the North Melbourne game we might get him back for. I'm all for Noel Bolter, but I just want him to play up the ground more. just because he's got a really good mark and he's got a thumping big boot. It would allow you to kick over the players flooding back to help out in the defense. Obviously, only issue is when he gets that ball and he wants to do that big kick, he waits too long. And you saw it today when he got that ball near the end. He waited and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna go." And he kicked it, and because he took so long, the Collingwood ruckman got down there and just was able to outmark everybody. So, look, that's unfortunately the roles that we tend to have, but we'll get better. I find it very hard to see where he's going to go when Tom Lynch gets back. It will be a challenging position. Yeah, Bolter on the wing. Well, yeah, he definitely has the speed, so you could definitely do it. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to it. Like, I wouldn't say no to trade. They've had Luke Trainer on the wing, so it really couldn't hurt to try. Yeah, look, Ken, I think a lot of people lost trust in him for his decision that he made in his private life. It didn't look good on the club, and now the club got blasted still to this day for not adding a couple extra weeks to suspension. Look, they made that decision before they knew what his court order was, and I like that they stuck to what the original suspension was and didn't bend their knees to satisfy what the media wanted. And look, in the end, he ended up getting more than the 4-game suspension. I think he's ended up missing like 7 games, 7 to 8 games this year. So what do you want the AF Richmond to do? Just to bend the knees just because a couple people in the media go, "Oh, well, it doesn't look good on the game." There's a lot worse that's happened by players. And I called that out when it first came out, and I listened to some of the media bullshit. I watched a couple of people who ex-players who are now in the media decide to call him out for his action. And I was like, I am pretty sure you got pinned for drink driving. And the club had to suspend you, or the leadership players had to pull you aside and tell you you're not playing because you got busted drink driving. So telling people that what he did was stupid and dumb and shouldn't be playing anymore and should be fired, when you did bigger and dumber decisions by drink driving as well. So a lot of players out there that seem to have their opinion, that have put themselves in bad spotlight, but they just seem to think it's all gone and forgotten. So look, I think he'll be a lot better next year. Like before this all went down, I think we all forget how good he actually really is. Season's so interrupted, up and down, ebbs and flows. I think going into next year, I think he'll be back to what he was the year before when he got his big 7-year deal. So does that make you guys on that 7-year deal, does that make you a little bit annoyed now? They gave him a 7-year deal and then he went and did that. Look, and he was today as well. He was a bit indecisive on his decisions. Because he seems to actually, I don't know if it's just him. Is that just us as a club? We seem to be coming and going with our decisions. We go, "Oh, we're going to go. We don't want to go." I don't know if that's the part of the game plan. It seemed like that at the start of the year, where there was times where we wanted to go fast and we wanted to go slow. Hugh, that's what Hugh, I said that in about 20 minutes ago. I was saying how he had the ball. I think it was 30 seconds ago. So it's not the end of the world, but you're trying to see the intent of what the player wants to do. Where he got the ball and he's got that we all know he's got that big boot on him. He seemed to want to not go. And then the time he kicked it, the Collingwood ruckman had floated down to that backline and marked it. And I don't know, what do you want him to do? Like, what do you want the other players to do? You allow the defense to get set up because you were too indecisive. It's mark the ball, take your 5 steps to 6 steps back, look up, cool, free forward line. It's one-on-one, get it down there. And that seems to be what we are as a club sometimes, unfortunately. Games, ebbs and flows, where we go, West Coast game. Everyone remembers the third quarter West Coast game, where we just went. We went hard. We weren't indecisive. We weren't taking our time and questioning what we were going to do next. So he would have likely triggered a one. Yeah. But where was he going to? Where are you going to send? Where was he going to go? And look, technically, you could still trade him away and get some good compensation for him if you wanted to get rid of him and give him a fresh start. But I just don't see the club getting rid of him. I think he's too much. They see him too high in the future. And I think the club has taken too many lashes on the back for the decision that he made outside of football. And I think they don't want to. They go, well, we trusted you to take this, and now we're just going to throw you out with it. With don't throw the baby. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I think they'll give him another chance to redeem himself. So was that Campbell and Taranto in next week? Well, I don't know about Taranto. Has anybody heard? Is Taranto officially going to be back? Because it was a soft tissue injury. I'm pretty sure they reported that it was a soft tissue injury. So that's a concern if it is. They might give him another week off. Campbell in, yeah. Look, if I had to be honest, Mansell would go out for me. Mansell would go out, and you'd bring in Seth Campbell. Taranto comes in, so you got to find Taranto in. Someone has to come out. Look, and maybe an idea. Maybe an idea for. Well, Hugh is just saying that they're not sure if he's going to be back. I believe they're still unsure about Taranto's return. So, look, it could just be one. I think we could all agree Seth would be an automatic, and that would, to me, should be Mansell. That's a good one, Paul. I'll look at that. We'll show yours in a minute, Paul. Actually, I love that idea. With Taranto, he's definitely out. You don't touch anyone else. I think Mansell goes out. Seth Campbell in. Put Mansell in the VFL. What we do with Steely Green, send him back. Hey, mate, go back to the VFL. Get yourself some confidence, and then come back in when you're ready, because he's not playing that great. Like last week, he kicked a couple of goals the last quarter. But we all know West Coast just had given up. They really just quit on him real easy. Ken, I don't agree. I don't think Alga will go out. Alga will. He was a sub. It's not. I reckon they'll give him I think if Alga's a sub again, but then who goes? Well, that's a good question for you. If Alga goes out, then who goes as the sub? He would just be back to trainer being a sub straight away. So. Paul, 7-year deal was to make Tassie to either pay more or give up an idea of taking him. Well, his contract doesn't end. I think it's 20. What they say it was 2030. I think if that's Noel Bolt talking about, Tassie can still take him, or we can trade him to Tassie, because we all know you can trade players in contract. So people thinking that Tassie, you can't trade players in contract. It's out the fucking window. Anyone who's on contract, you can get them. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time, Cozzy Pickett asked for a trade back to WA. So, look, we had Rioli and Bolter. They both had 2 to 3 years on their deals when they requested a trade back to WA. And we found a way to do that. So, don't be surprised if maybe we try and trade in there, because they have to trade. Now, not sure if it's 100% set, but they're pretty sure they get pick 1, 3, 5, 7, and 11, and 9, and they have to trade. They have to trade away 3 of those last first. I think it's like 7, 9, and 13. They must trade them away and bring players in. So maybe a good pivoting point would be, hey, give us pick 9, and you could have a premiership defender, Noel Bolter. So Nick Dacos. And Nas, who are you taking? Oh, shit. That's a hard one. No, I'd go Dacos. I know, look, Nas is insanely good especially when he did get against the D's today. But I think Dacos would be a dynamic player for our midfield, along with Taranto, Hopper, and Sam Lawler, Smiley would all be so well off having him. But geez, I just don't think what would Collingwood give up for Nick Dacos? Geez, you'd have to give him like 4 first-round picks. And do you want to see Collingwood? Then the question is, do you want to see Collingwood, ex-Collingwood player in a Richmond jersey? Contract guarantees money for the player. Yeah. And I understand why you signed a 7-year deal. I think we all would agree that we're not angry that the player, not angry for him signing the 7-year deal. Like any player, you want every person's going to say, get your money. You know, you make that money, that's up to you. But it's just it's annoying. I think more people fans get a bit more annoyed the fact that you sign your 7-year deal, and then in a year's time, like Shea Bolton, everyone was quite annoyed and Rioli because they signed those big long-term deals. Well, Bolton was, I think it was a 4 or 5 year. Rioli was 4. We paid you that money. We paid you the $1 million and whatever it was to keep you here. And then in a year's time, you want to go home. It's like, well, where's the loyalty? That's what I think what people get annoyed about when it comes to the contract situation. I really think the AFL needs to adopt the NBA. Is the maximum is a 5-year contract. I think you don't think this ridiculous 7 and 9 year deals, and now Harley Reid is talking about, I think it was like 10 or 11 year deal contract, is so dumb. It can set a club back years, like a long time. You imagine if West Coast decides to sign Harley Reid, and then there's 2 scenarios. 2 years time, he requests a trade to someone else. Or 2 years' time, he does an ACL, and he comes back the next year, gets himself right, bang, does another ACL. It could end up like Clarkson from us, back-to-back ACLs, and maybe even go again. And then you've just wasted 3 years of this contract, and then you're not going to see any returns from it. So I think it's just these 5 years should be the max for me, and no one warrants beyond that. Just 5 years. And you can have a trigger at 5 years. You get the 5-year mark, you play this many games, whatever. It triggers another 3 years or 2 years or whatever. But I just think our contract system in the AFL is putting a lot of power to the players, and I'm all for that. But it's fine. But there's got to be a limit. That's 7 years plus he's getting insane now. Trading for Bolter, yeah. No, I'll keep him still. He's still a good player. 2-year contract for Reid means he has been at West Coast for 5 years. If he isn't seeing anything improvement, fair enough if he leaves. Yeah. Look, and a lot of reports is, I think, for Reid. And look, I'm all for Reid. I'm a from Kyabram. Brett Delidio is from. He's from Tony, so it's only like 20 minutes. I used to see him around town all the time. Very nice guy, but yeah, I reckon if he doesn't sign this year, but he says he's staying for the rest of the year, I think he ends up at Geelong. I really think he'll end up at Geelong. Or if he wants to leave this year, it's Essendon or Richmond, and that's it. I think that's the 2 names that will go after him and be willing to pay him the money that he wants. And not that I think we should. We'll give the assets for him, but yeah, I just think, to me now, if I'm Richmond, I'm off the Reid train and I'm on the Butters train every day of the week. So, right, guys, we'll just go for a couple more minutes, shoot through some more questions if you wanna before we jump off. She's getting quite late now. We've been running for about an hour and a half, so shoot a few more questions through, and we'll call it a night. So, all right, actually, I'll have a question for everyone who's actually watching. In the comments below, can you give me a rating for how you think we played this week? Sorry, that was great. Oh, you know who's waste potential? Here comes up Tim Kelly. Look, he has been really bad, and I feel for him, but geez, he wanted to come back here and he wanted the big money, and now he's lost the love of the game. So who knows? What are Geelong going to give up for him? Well, technically, they could do what Geelong always seem to get away with, because next year he would end his contract and he would be a restricted free agent. They could just turn around and say they can make him make him walk to the trade. It's annoying because they did it with Bailey Smith. They did the exact same thing with Bailey Smith. They're like, take what we've got. If you don't like it, get over it. Don't like that. I think there's got to be a way around this. It just seems to annoy me. But I think with Geelong, I just don't know if Geelong is going to give him the money that he wants. That's the only thing I would say about the Geelong thing is Geelong going to pay him what he's asking for? Well, reportedly what he's asking for. Because the report that came out didn't make any sense. He doesn't want to go to any struggling clubs. Well, you're at the worst club in the AFL. We can all agree they're probably overall the worst right now. And then it was probably no to Melbourne, no to St Kilda, and no to Essendon. But it wasn't no to us, which technically we're a struggling club right now. And he wants to go to a contending team. So a lot of the reports doesn't make any sense. And he wants a free farm and all that shit. A lot of that I just don't agree with. And if that's the path he's going down and Geelong goes for it, go ahead. Don't know how. I think they still haven't heard nothing about their salary cap dodginess they were doing earlier. So Paul Blokes has been at West Coast. Yeah, well, hey, Tim Kelly, he chose to leave to go to West Coast because he wanted to compete for a finals, and West Coast made their own decision, gave up 3 first-round picks because apparently Geelong, when it's the other way around, you got to give Geelong whatever they want or nothing happens. When it goes the other way around, you just got to do what Geelong gives you. So widescreen TV says a B. Yeah, cool. I like that. I would probably say a B. Yeah. Michael says 6.5 out of 10. What would that be? A D minus. Yeah, I would be in the B minus. A B. I'll be B somewhere overall if I was up to me. 6.7. Yeah. Look, to me, it's a pass mark. Today's game is a pass mark. I think Collingwood really should have put the thumb down and really should have used us as training cones to get them hone their own skills before going into their next big month of football. Paul says pass mark as well. I agree, Paul. Who do you think the money he's do you think the money he's asking for to get out of West is? Well, West Coast is apparently willing to pay him the money, and they've given him, I think it's 3 different contracts. West Coast has said about Reid is they'll give him a 2-year one, a 5-year one, or a 10-year one. And then I think the 5-year or the 4-year one is the second one, I think the 5-year one is like a 5 years. And then at the end of the 5 years, it's a trigger for him play option for him to go, yeah, we want to actually keep going. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years, I would not be surprised if we see team options and player options in contracts where the team and the player can go, yeah, I want to pick up my year and stay another year. Or the club goes, nah, we don't want to keep you around anymore. Your contract's no longer guaranteed. You're a free agent. Would not be surprised if we go down that way because we seem to follow the NBA in a lot of stuff they do. Ken, you're a bit down on that one, 5.5. Only because he wasn't now. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. I would agree on the 5.5, but I agree. I would give the 5.5 on the disappointment on the not tagging, just because Jack Ross has showed that he can do it. And if you're going to do it, at least do it for 2 quarters, like what we have done. Cool. He's on the leash. He's off the leash. Give him a tag and just see how you go. I'm definitely not against trying that, and it can't hurt either, can it? So, right, guys. I think we'll call it at that. They're about over an hour and a half. Be my longest stream ever. Just want to say thank you to everyone who jumped on and watched me and my ugly head talk shit, because that's all I ever do. I'm no professional at this. I don't have any contacts, but I do appreciate you all jumping on, commenting, because when you guys comment, it makes it a lot easier to talk instead of me rambling on about the shit that I don't know about. So, sorry, hang on. Before we go, Ken was just giving one that you all might want to read about. Hasn't Reid's management table another contract? Yes, no, I have heard that. I haven't seen the contract, if anything about that, but yeah, that's not actually, yeah. No, who knows? We'll find out eventually with Reid, but yeah. All right, guys. Thank you again. And as I will say, stay safe and go Tigers.